Hi, it's John from positiveresolution.co.uk and welcome to episode 7 of the Business Growth Weekly. As usual, I'm joined by my friend Stephen Swift from YorkshireMarketingBusiness.com. Stephen, how are you doing?
I'm very well today, thank you, John. How's yourself?
I am not so bad. It's been another busy week.
Right, how are we going to get on with today's topic then?
We are indeed. And today's topic is the world getting smaller?
Episode 7.
Episode 7. Is the world getting smaller? Yes. What's episode 8?
Goodbye. Comments below, please.
You've been mentioned.
Is the world getting smaller? Well, obviously the world isn't actually getting smaller as a physical sense, but due to the fact that technology has evolved to the degree that it has, and not just technology as in what we're doing with recording this in 2 separate locations and then posting out to people literally anywhere in the world using the internet, etc. But then there's also travel can be taken into it as well, whereas before you'd have no chance of going to Australia unless you had a couple of months to go by boat or whatever. And even planes, when they came on, they've evolved and got quicker and faster and more efficient. And, it was about 27 hours, I think it is, with one stop now, usually Shanghai or something to get to Australia. Depending on which side you're going to Perth or Sydney, one thing, another, Adelaide and Cairns. And yes, I know Australia quite well. No particular reason why, but anyway. I think the world is getting smaller.
That's in front of you there.
Yeah, so technology, and I think the way everything's evolved over time, as it's going to, it's called progress. It's interesting for me though to see how much further is it going to go.
Do you know, it's the one thing.
That's the scary thing, I think, isn't it?
It's interesting for me with sort of any new idea, because you think to yourself, someone must have come up with this before, or you try and come up with a genuinely innovative idea, and you think it doesn't exist. I mean, we were talking before we clicked record on this about music, weren't we? And well, it's all the same notes in the same order, and
you're picking on my band again.
I am picking on your band again. And certain bands, they're very good at repeating the formula over and over again. We won't mention the band, but we don't need to, really, do we? But to me, that's a good analogy, because it's the same in all areas of life. At what point do you say there's very few life-changing or game-changing innovations that aren't just a combination of 2 old innovations that come together? When was the last time you saw something genuinely new that was going to change everything and change the way things happened? Well, the internet is probably the last one, and the internet has allowed us to do this in 2 separate locations, like you said, and it's just as easy for us to do this now as it would be if you were in Australia. We could still be doing this, broadcasting this at the same time every week, having the same conversations. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think technology has just shrunk what we're capable of doing, and travel and location. I mean, location just isn't such a big deal anymore. It's
doesn't play the same part, does it, anymore?
The other side of the world is achievable. If you set off now, this time tomorrow, you could be at the other side of the world.
I think it kind of means that transportation and communications are improving all the time, aren't they? And the nature of business and politics in the world is changing, so that we have more interaction than ever before with people in other countries, we've said, and other parts of the world. So what seemed to be closer to people all over the world, and the world would seem to be smaller than in the past because of it, I guess, is a way of maybe putting it.
Well, I've got to say, I mean, when I was sort of 7 years ago, whatever it was, running an import agency, it was a nightmare, because you've got the red tape, you've got different rules in different countries for payments and export and import and all that stuff, and a lot of that job was translation of those different regulations and making sure that people didn't fall foul of them. And then, a couple of years ago, I helped somebody set up a company that imports high quality stationery from across the globe, not necessarily even in the EU. And with the advent of people like and websites like AliExpress and those kind of places, half of that job's already done for you. So it becomes very, very easy to be somebody who imports and sells product in the UK. So to me, that was a big eye opener in the way that and how quickly the game has changed for different businesses.
Yeah.
Very, very easy now for you to source a global product that nobody else has got, bring it into the UK, and either retail it or put it out through the internet or whatever you want to do. Very, very easy.
It means that you can actually speak with people that you know anywhere in the world, isn't it? With the technology, it's no longer is it a case of waiting for relatives to fly in from another country before you next get to see them or speak to them. Obviously telephone's been around for a while, but now you've got things like Skype that you can use, and literally you can have a video call and see people over the internet. So
there's now as well. There is I think the company's called Ortsbo. I think they're an American company who does like instant messenger, but it's real-time translation. So you type, if you're talking to somebody in Korea, for example.
Oh, yes.
You type in your message in English, they see it in Korean. And they reply in Korean, and you see it in English, which is fantastic because anybody who's done any kind of trying to source or do business across borders, a lot of the time the borders aren't there anymore, but the language barrier still is. And you don't necessarily realise that you're not understanding each other. So it's another valuable tool, which again to me says things are going that way.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, one of my team that does programming on a specific website platform called Modex. A chap called Mangesh. He's an expert on Modex, and he's literally one of their professionals. And Modex actually get in touch with me and saying, look, this guy has done some work for you in the past, and he did a phenomenal job on that. A huge website project that we're involved with one of our clients. And because of the internet, I was able to source his services. We were then communicating using Skype, and it just wasn't a problem. When you start talking about wanting to speak with somebody that can't talk in your language, you need to go to these other platforms that offer this extra service. And it's invaluable when you're discussing business with people in other countries that don't speak the same language as you, or you're not fluent in their language. Like you say, it removes that other barrier once again. It makes the world again even smaller. You can talk to somebody in a different country, have a conversation with them, be it by typing. I mean, how long is it going to be before they convert what we're saying now? So when people are watching this in their own country, they'll watch this recording, and instead of it being in English, and then we have to put subtitles, for example, their device. I could be letting a product go here, actually. But I've already started speaking. Unless we don't run this video and restart this again, which isn't what we do. We tend to just let it go. I'll carry on. If someone, you heard it here first, folks. Stephen Swift, Yorkshire Marketing Business, came up with this idea. I'll get the patent in now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But to actually have software, I'm going to kick myself because someone's going to make $1 million out of this. I just had software. I don't know when to shut up sometimes. Software that played a video, but when it picked up the location the video was being viewed in, you could select, do you want it in the language of the country you're in or not? And it automatically did like a dubbing voiceover.
I can just imagine you being overdubbed by like Catherine Hepburn or something.
Thank you very much.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
There's a little clue to the previous band we were talking about. So, I mean, the other question that I'm interested in is, did you see what I did there? I brought that back on topic.
It's seamless.
What a pro. Couldn't see the join there, could you? I mean, it sounds like we're agreed. Obviously, the world's getting smaller, and there are opportunities out there. And one of the things that tells you that is the fact that you base yourself in Yorkshire. The services you offer are basically to Yorkshire companies, but your team is a virtual team across the world.
Yeah.
And I
have people that work for me, sort of thing, but where you need an expert in a specific field, like within the Modex example I gave earlier with Mangesh. I just couldn't find anybody that would offer the services which I required in the time frame I needed them for my client, because their expectations, their demands were pushing onto me, and I had to find, a resource that was going to work. And it just couldn't be fulfilled in the UK, on my doorstep or in the UK nationally. So you have to spread the net, and technology allows you to do that. A couple of clicks of the mouse, type in a couple of things on the search, and voila, there you go. You've found a result and a solution to the situation that you find yourself in. So
you just raised an interesting point there, which was that the expertise existed in the UK, but you couldn't get the service you needed in the time frame you needed, so you had to source it somewhere else. That's a really interesting point to bring out, because what that says to me is that this new sort of global communication thing, where it's much easier to source things anywhere, means that suddenly people's competition, that expert in the UK, when you turned around and said, I need this service, and they said, no, you can't have it from me. You can have it, but when I say it's available.
Yes.
That person obviously hadn't realised, well, his competition isn't just his local area anymore. He'd not realised, well, actually, this guy can go and source it somewhere else. So suddenly your level of service, which culturally may be at a certain level, and particularly in the UK, is one of my bugbears. We have a certain level of service that we accept in this country, and we kind of put down people who try and offer better service than that. Suddenly, you're having to compete with that level of service, and if you don't understand that as a business, and you don't understand that this is going to become more and more important, you're going to end up falling flat on your face.
So the world might be getting smaller, but the competition's getting bigger, isn't it, in some respects?
Absolutely. Now, that's great for the consumer. It's great for you if you're looking for a service, but if you're the provider of a service and you're used to having close onto a monopoly in your geographical area, whether that be a county or a country, suddenly you don't have that anymore. If you don't realise that you don't have that anymore, that complacency will kill your business over time. And certainly, I mean, look at how fast technology is going now. The next 5 years, geography, particularly for business to business, not going to matter at all.
No.
Physical product is going out of the window in all but in everything except basically food.
Yeah.
Who would have thought 10, 15 years ago? Look at that.
Hello. Just a second.
You're watching the Business Growth Weekly.
Huge apologies for that, everybody. I'll just put that on silent now. That wasn't the band we were talking about, if you heard the ringtone. Should we give everybody a little bit more content to discuss and leave comments about?
Why not? So get it back on topic.
There we go. So I think we've kind of exhausted to a certain degree the technology aspect of the world getting smaller, the fact that business competition's getting greater, depending on what business you're in, obviously. If you're in a very niche market and there's very few people globally that offer the service, yes, it might dilute it down, but some of it might be restrictive by the potential client needing a service in a certain country, and they're prepared to wait. So
how do you think? I mean, there are going to be people out there who are thinking of starting a business or already run a business, which is very culturally specific. Certainly in the UK, there are people whose business models and the way that they approach business is very different to how it would work, say, in Europe, or mainland Europe, or in other parts of the world. How do you think, or how do you see that globalization of communication affecting those kind of business models, assuming that competition suddenly is becoming much more global?
People have to focus on the more specific elements of the business to retain clients, to capture new customers. How do they do that? Depends on the business model to some degree, but there's certain things, that I think resonate across any business model and any business sector. Price point is one thing. I know that can be dictated by bottom line costs and landed price to customers. There's also the service levels. Mentioned, obviously, a short time ago, I outsourced some work to a chap that's over in Pune in India. It's not exactly just down the road from where I live, but that didn't stop the work getting done because of technology. So I think service levels have to play a huge part. It has to go back to the old days of, the customer's always right and customer comes first and one thing or another. It has to be more of a focus needs to be put on that, I think, to up people's game. They need to work harder now. The money can't come as easy as what it used to do. I've got this. There's no one else around here that offers what I do, so I'm going to make a bunch out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case of, no, actually, now there's lots of people that can offer you service. It doesn't matter where they are. So you now need to focus on looking after your customers. You now need to look after how you present yourself to your customers, how well you treat them. Over delivery is something which at YMB we try to do as much as possible. So I think those couple of elements alone would make a huge difference and a massive impact on your business if you didn't do something with them, and also when you do decide to do something with them. So that's the two I'd look at first. What about yourself? What do you think, John?
The thing that's interesting to me, and actually it leads on to the next question I was going to ask you, is I think where you've got an obviously defined cultural difference, that's much easier to work around than cultural differences where you might assume the culture was the same.
Can you give an example of that, John?
I can, and I can give an example because I'm gonna ask you about it in a second. Because specifically with the information product side of your business, I think that you've probably covered this without realizing it, and I want to try and dig into that and find out how you did it. But for example, if you are a business in the UK, which is has a certain culture, and alongside being a Christian country, there's a certain value set which culturally is ingrained, whether you regard yourself as a Christian or not. As a country, as a nation, our culture has a value set that we tend to adhere to, which is where you get people judging on a social norm. Okay, social norms are based on a community or a communal value set. If you're dealing with a culture that has a different value set, so for example, if you were dealing with a country in the Middle East, which predominantly isn't a Christian country, some of those values, in fact, actually many more of those values are the same as we have, but there are certain ones that are different. That's a very obvious cultural difference, and you can work around that. Like, for example, if you are a butcher, you wouldn't necessarily offer pork. It's a silly example, but if you were exporting sausage rolls, you wouldn't export them to Iran, for example. Make sense?
Mm.
However, brace yourselves, people. I'm about to mention America. Right? Steve's looking really confused now.
Oh no, I know where this is going.
The difference between America and Britain as a culture is huge. But in the UK, particularly, Americans are much better at noticing cultural differences and working around them and basically bulldozing across them and going, no, you're going to do it our way anyway. But as a nation, the British try and be like that, but unfortunately we're not very good at it. And we tend to think of our culture and the way we do business as the same way that Americans do business, except Americans do it much louder and much brasher, and they don't really mean it. So we explain it away. What people don't realise is that actually, particularly in a global market, the whole world has been Americanized. So they expect all that, have a nice day, missing you already, and all of that stuff. And we're left on the back burner because we're going, I'm not going to sink to that level. Well, unless you do, you've got some major problems, because the rest of the world expects you to do that, particularly Americans expect you to do that. 99% of the research through information selling businesses or internet-based businesses, 99% of the information that you get pounded with originates in the United States. Google is an American company. Yes, it has localized bits of information, but it's an American company with an American attitude, and the data that comes through them is set up that way because their American advertisers have gone, this is what we want to see. Now, some of that all of those statistics are going to be relevant, but they're going to be much more relevant if you live in the United States. So my question for you was going to be, particularly in your information sales business, how do you work around that? How do you translate the information that you get, which is basically American? How do you apply it to the UK and to your business model? And then how do you then expand it out so that it makes sense to the rest of the world? How do you deal with the American problem?
Okay.
You see, you thought it was going to be a really weird question, this, and it's actually come out quite well.
Yeah, that's a nice, easy question.
Yeah.
The answer's the difficult part.
And I wasn't
swearing.
I wasn't that offensive about Americans either.
No, I think you're very. You did very well there.
Because this goes out on YouTube, and that's American as well.
Yeah, because obviously it's owned by Google. For those that didn't know, where you've been living for the past 7 years.
Actually, I think us Brits came out of that worse than the Americans did, because we tend to bury our head in the sand, I think. But anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. Answer the question.
Yes. This is going to become a very political episode, isn't it? How do I deal with the Americanized versions of what I do for my information publishing business? Is that what your question is?
Yes. So the information that you get, the majority of it being in an American format, the client base that you have, the attitude of the rest of the world towards Britain and America.
Well, basically, when I get anything to do with a product, whether it's an ebook, a manual, a report, a DVD, a CD, whatever it might be, those are the main things that I tend to deal with for that element of the business. Literally, some of the products don't just necessarily come from America. A lot do. A lot of the sales side of it and the actual websites that I get as part of the product sale, the resale rights or the global rights when I buy these products, come from America. But not all products are from America. They're just released over there. For example, one that I know that I'm involved with at the moment is a 3 DVD course, which is about self-protection martial arts for the female market. So women can build up the confidence and feel safer when they're out and about on their own, with a group of friends, whatever it might be. And if somebody comes up to them and they're feeling a little bit unsure, or that person actually goes forward to attack them in some way, or to steal the bag off them, or beat them up, or worse, that there are techniques that they can learn from these DVDs that will permit them to be able to escape from that situation. But they'll have the confidence to be able to, still go out and have fun and do what they want to do without feeling I can't go out because it's such and such a time at night now and it's darker and I feel scared. These DVDs do that. That package is actually from an Australian guy, martial arts expert. But the sales copy that originally came was in American. So there's two elements there. You can't do anything about the product itself, the DVD, because it is what it is, and you can't change the sound of somebody's voice unless you basically go into an English dojo and decide to record it, something like that. So, but the sales side of things, the website that I got given by it, I knew it was going to be really cheesy. Mm-hmm. I knew it was not going to be fit for purpose for the UK market, let alone anywhere else, because it was too short, the terminology was incorrect, the spellings were inappropriate, and it was salesy, very cheesy and very salesy. Now, there's nothing wrong with cheesiness and salesy sort of thing in the right place. And our American cousins, friends, whatever you want to call them, counterparts, people over the pond, there's all sorts of ways you can express, American, people from America. Americans are happy to be sold to far more than people in the UK. And they accept that that's part of the culture that they live in. It's a very salesy, very promotional, very coupon this, coupon that, very buy this today at 99, 99, 99, 99, and and all this, bang, 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 flashy bang. There was an advert that's been running in the UK for a short while now, and it's for a national car hire company. And it's got a UK chap and it's got an American chap in it. And the UK guys want to keep everything, very yes and proper and straight and plumb in mouth, etc., etc. Whereas the American chap is your typical flamboyant, way sort of guy that's out there. And they're saying, come and hire a car off us and we'll make sure that your services and your needs are met and serviced appropriately. And that's where the advert should end. But then the American sales guy basically hits a button and there's flares go up and there's banners pop up and there's a big fanfare and he says, now that's how you end an advert and all this sort of thing. Apologies for my excruciatingly poor American accent. I can't even believe I attempted that.
Brilliant.
But that's the difference between the two sort of thing. So, I mean, they put that element in for the UK market because it's almost like taking the mick sort of thing, and it's humorous. And we like humour in the UK. We need more humour in the UK. I nearly said something about government then. So, I don't want to get kicked out of the country. Freedom of speech and all that. Another topic. So what I then do is, and you'll know elements of this as well, John, obviously with doing various copywriting courses, which I passed over to yourself, is there's a structure that you use and ways of actually representing an offer, like with a DVD set, that's going to be receptive to the UK market. Because the culture in the UK is, if I want something, I'll go out and I'll bloody well find it. I'll ring up. I'll do a search on the internet. Don't come knocking at my door. Don't try thrusting this leaflet in my face when I'm walking around town. If I want it, I'll go and look for it. So the way we present things, or the way I present things over here, and I know there's other internet marketers out there which do the same kind of thing as what I do. When we structure an offer, we put it in a manner where it's informative, it's empathetical, it's pressing the emotional buttons, it's agreeing with people, it's talking to them one-to-one, acknowledging their situation, their need, their desire, their want, and expressing it in such a way in words and using images that relay the fact that we understand and that we care and that we are looking to help and we understand the situation that they're in. And we like to try and offer a solution and suggestion as opposed to hard sell. You're scared to go out because you fear that somebody may attack you. You fear that someone may be following you, and that makes you feel uncomfortable. So here, buy this and it's going to solve your problem. That's the direct sales approach. Our approach is, you're feeling like you're a little bit uncomfortable when you're going out. We know where you're coming from with that. We understand that, some people do feel a little bit intimidated if someone's walking behind them in the footpath. And you don't have to feel like that if you don't want to. It's up to you, of course. And then you go into it. So you try to have a conversation and get on that emotional level sort of thing. Yeah. And then obviously progress it from there. So that's how I would deal with cultural issues with regards to receiving a product that's in one type of language for one kind of audience, and then interpret that and basically just represent it in a different form that I know is more receptive, or likely to be more receptive for the way people like to be.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you pick a product to sell, do you take into account the accents that are used in that product? When you develop a product or anything, do you take into account, well, this is my market, this is the kind of accent they're going to... The reason I'm asking this is because with, obviously, with what I do, I check out a lot of hypnotherapists, hypnosis type products. One of the reasons that my voice is quite soft on these broadcasts, people have commented on, is because
he wears loose trousers. I'm getting one back on you.
Oh dear. Steve, on the other hand.
Yes.
Let's not get into that. Don't need to.
You don't want me to stand up.
He's not wearing any trousers, that's why. What was I saying before that happened? Oh, that's right. I was saying...
Asking me about different products and how I go about choosing and elements that I feel.
Yeah,
does it have an impact?
that's right. And I was talking about voice, and my voice tends to be fairly soft when I do things like this, because in the past I've done a lot of hypnosis. Nothing to do with my trousers. Or the fact that Steve records...
People have just glitched to this point of the video. It's got nothing to do with it.
It's definitely nothing to do with the fact that Steve doesn't wear trousers while we...
My credibility has gone to nothing. Which is an increase, I suppose. Oh dear. For those people that do know who I am, I do apologise sincerely. And they'll probably turn around the camera and go, no, you don't.
We're just used to it, Steve, but I don't.
I never attended any network meeting unless fully clothed, and the people know that. So, do you want me to answer the question or no?
I think I'm still in the middle of an answer. So yes, let me get to the end of the question first. So that the reason that I talk fairly softly is because I used to do a lot of hypnosis work, and there's an expectation that your vocals have to be a certain way. And I have to say, I once heard a hypnosis product which was done by an Australian guy, which just did not work at all. I tried it out with other people, tried it myself, and it was just, this is strange. So there seems to be an expectation there that it's either an American accent or a British accent, and anything else, people just go, this is weird. I mean, do you take that into account while you pick products?
Sorry, go on.
And if you do, can you talk us through that and how you would make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, some products, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, it does to a degree, depending on whereabouts you're going to be positioning that product for sale, to be available. If it's an instructional product, explaining people how to do things, whether it's an audio product, an MP3 or a DVD, for example, will your market be able to understand the soundtrack to that? Mm-hmm. That's one thing you need to bear in mind. If you're positioning it for sale in an area where they understand the language, i.e. something that's a form of English, because you've got American English, English, Australian English, so on, then it's fine, it's not a problem. But if you do have it where it needs to be in Russian, German,
Scotland.
Oh dear. Thanks for watching, everybody.
I have brought Scotland up for a reason, though, so
I'm actually part Scottish. That's just
so am I.
Gained some votes or lost some votes.
So am I. Yes.
So worst combination, Yorkshire and Scottish all in one person.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm a quarter Scottish. It's my right leg.
As long as people can understand what's being said, then it doesn't really matter. Like the DVD said, it's recorded with an instructor in Australia, and I'm putting it on the UK market. Not a problem. The problem was with the wording in the sales page, i.e. the website. That needed a lot of work. Basically, we just started from scratch. We used new images, new copy, i.e. the wording in it, and all the postscripts, etc. There was one postscript which was buy it now before the price goes up. That's like a sense of urgency, but that's a load of BS, to be polite. Again, that's an American term, I suppose, a load of rubbish. So on that side of things, then you do need to look at it. When you're looking at a physical book, again, can people read the language that the book's written in? Is the terminology in the book going to be receptive by the people reading it? Again, we're going back to terminology where American phrases, some work, some don't work in the UK.